My audio was muted. That's why we have the pre-show, because my audio was muted this whole time. So thanks for telling us, Argus, Vinova, and Ahmed. So I am showing up. So welcome in. This is the pre-show before we go live. And as I was telling everyone who couldn't hear a word I was saying, but if you're a lip reader, you already are aware that we are going to go live as soon as we see some shares. I want to see some thumbs up on the YouTube channel. We have 11 right now. So if you're going to go out and click that share button, click on the link and copy and paste it in your favorite photography group that maybe might be curious about Milky Way photography, then I want you to hit that thumbs up button again and say, hey, yep, I shared it. Chris Whiting, check, 1, 2, check. Yep, welcome in, Chris and Argus. There you are, Argus says. Yep, here I am. I was talking to no one. Well, at least Matt and Alyn could hear me, but no one else could hear me. And so I am going to go ahead and pin Alyn's video so that Matt and I are in the top hiding from him, and we are going to go live here shortly. We just need to wait until we are ready for 11 a.m. Ooh, 11 a.m. is here. Okay, we got to get those shares out so we can get rolling with everybody. Hello from North Carolina, from Phil. Hello from Argus. I already said Argus. Ahmed and Peter and Vinova, you were helping me out with no sound, but I hope everything's good with you. Have you shared with your friends yet? SM Wilkes, hey y'all from Northeast Georgia. And Royce Bear's back. He's back hanging out with us right now. Hey, Royce. I went out this weekend and had a very exciting trip planned for Death Valley, Mono Lake, and Alabama Hills. I wasn't going to do Milky Way in Alabama Hills at Mobius Arch, but I wanted to go by there again and see it at this time of year, and I was stoked to be there. Hey, it's Katie Larson. Awesome. We're going to Faroe Islands, Katie and I. We're going to have a blast in Faroes. And Mike Shaw's here from Minnesota, and Bob cloudy and rainy here in Pittsburgh. That's pretty much describes my weekend, Bob. That's what ended up happening for me. I drove through crazy snow with warning saying must have snow tires to continue on to Mono Lake past Mammoth Lakes, and I just kept going. I went about 20 miles an hour, made sure I didn't get too much speed on the downhills, and survived going in there just to freeze to death with my friends, and we all huddled up in my vehicle, and I slept like this in the driver's seat, and then twisted every 14 minutes to try and survive. So no blood clots at least, so I survived that. That was terrific. But here we are hanging out right before we go live. Hey from Arizona. I'm going to pull up the Facebook stream, see if we got any shares going on there. Looks like I'm not even signed in. Let's make sure that I'm over on my actual Facebook so I can see some of that information. I'm going to go back and forth right here. We're going live with Alyn momentarily. I just want to see that you get your friends in here who aren't aware that we're starting right now. I want to make sure that we get some shares and everyone is ready to go. So I'm going to mute myself over on Facebook. I can see the chats coming through, and we have YouTube audio working perfectly. So finally. And let me just double check. Do I have any pictures that are going to overlap Alyn's face? No. Okay, that's good. I can fix that problem from last time. Those of you who joined me in a live stream with Alyn Wallace and Yuri Beletsky for a Milky Way Photographers Guild roundtable, we had fun with them, and I started off the first 5 minutes blocking Alyn's face. So this week, I promise not to do that. Christina says, hello from San Francisco Bay Area. Hey, San Francisco, I wonder how the weather's there, because it was just so rainy on the other side of the mountains over there on, Mono Lake, Lone Pine, heading into Death Valley. It started raining on a Saturday and then into Sunday morning, so I didn't get a chance to do my 2:30 a.m. Milky Way hike out to Red Cathedral, which would have been a completely new location for me, and it would have been a blast to capture an early Milky Way in the season right now. Sandeep is here. Hello, this is from New Delhi. Hey, Sandeep Mathur, welcome in. Jeffrey Moan says hello from Arizona. Fred here. Sue Wilson's from North Idaho. Manuel Tobarras from Spain. And Bob, read your post on Mono Lake. Oh, he read my post over on the Guild. Yeah, I was talking about the difficulty of how it went. Ended up only getting iPhone photography that weekend. That was not awesome. And then Jerry Thompson, hey Aaron, Alyn, Royce, and everyone. We are talking Milky Way at 11 a.m. and still all my old friends are showing up. You guys are awesome. And you obviously don't have much to do in your work. Awesome. Perfect. Stay with us. Don't go to work. Don't focus on your family. Let's talk about Milky Way. Dan Scott, hi, greetings from Guernsey and the Channel Islands. Okay, Dan, you're just rubbing it in, aren't you? I think he's just rubbing it in. Andrea Boyle's here. Chris Whiting already said hey to Chris. Hey, Mike. Hello, and David Levy. Hey, Paul. We've had clear skies at 10 a.m. and at 100% cloud cover at 3:30 for Milky Way. That's fantastic, right, Teresa? As I drove away from Vegas and woke up to a beautiful sunrise outside of Vegas, it was nice and clear heading out the whole way home, but not during my Milky Way hours. Oh, yeah. Hey, Justin says he took his lunch break at this time. Perfect. Royce is excited to learn from Alyn. All right, so I've given us some time. We have a share. We have some shares there. Let's see if I got the thumbs up that I need to get going and pulling Alyn here from our YouTube crowd. Ooh, we're up to 20. Okay. All right, I guess we're going to get started. I guess we're going to start rolling with today's presentation with Alyn Wallace, and I am going to bring him in. I'm going to turn on his audio. I'm going to turn off my camera, and let's get rolling. Welcome in, everybody, to another Nightscaper pre-event. I'm Aaron King, and I'm from Photog Adventures. If you followed me before, you know I encourage you to get out there and have an adventure with your camera. Just go. Do something. Talking Milky Way mostly, but also some landscape. Today I'll be doing a Monday Moment event. Actually, I never picked what the picture was going to be. And with all this live stream, I doubt that I'll be able to do it in time. So it won't be a Monday Moment of Envy today. This will be our hangout today for our live stream, doing this with Alyn Wallace. And I'm stoked to be here to talk to a new friend who is going to be in person with me out at Crater Lake. I cannot wait. So let's go ahead and bring in the man himself, Alyn Wallace. Hey, welcome in, Alyn.
And hello, thanks for having me.
You bet. It's
nice.
Thanks
to everyone for turning up as well. Shout out to Royce and Mike Shaw in the chat. We got a couple of Astro legends in here.
Right? Absolutely.
I know.
And I got a friend from Twin Falls. I used to live in Twin Falls, Guppy guy. Awesome. It is sweet to see everyone coming in at 11 a.m. Maybe it's a good time for a lunch break. We've got tons watching with us over on Facebook and YouTube, so everyone's ready to learn. Alyn, I know that you've had some weather, and so you haven't had the greatest opportunity for Milky Way, but you were telling me a week and a day ago that you went out. Can you retell that event, that first and final gone out and did some photography?
I've actually had a couple of nights since then. I love the winter sky at this time of year with Orion and the winter hexagon and all those constellations and that sort of faint bit of the Milky Way that runs through them. So I've been photographing those, and I've been working on a bit of a commercial thing with Samsung at the moment with the new Galaxy phones and doing some astrophotography with those. So that's been pretty fun to do some astrophotography with the smartphone.
Yeah, that is pretty significant. I've seen the Google Pixel pick up some images. I've seen detail of the core on my iPhone, but it's not like it's something I'm going to switch away from. Were the Samsung phones anything significant as an improvement?
They're better than the previous Samsung phones, but the Google Pixel is still killing it, man. The stacking that it does in the phone is just really, really impressive.
Oh, man, okay. I mean, I might have to get a Pixel just for that, so that whenever I'm having a night where I'm sitting there, maybe pull out my iPhone and have some fun with it, or pull out my Google Pixel. It's exciting to think about the phones picking up, but it's also not exciting. I love bringing my camera out and doing the tripod and having the whole thing. If the phones get so good that people are just going to learn to use their phone and let the phone edit it, kind of bums me out a little bit.
Well, I'd like to think we're protected by the laws of physics from that one, but you can't. You never know where this artificial intelligence is going to go, to be honest.
Oh, right, exactly. Seriously. So as I look at the chat and I see some people talking about Alyn, excited to see him here, and John Henry Marie says he's off the phone and on the web. So I want to let everyone know, remind you that in the chat that you're seeing below Alyn, when you hook me up with an all caps question, I will know to pull back up that question later on in the stream today when we do our live Q&A. So make sure if you have a question that you want Alyn to answer, write it in all caps and it will not get forgotten. Mike Shaw says, hey, it's nice to meet you, Alyn, and meet you through the face of a live stream, but it is awesome to meet you, he says, and we'll be seeing each other.
Well, I'll see Mike in the conference, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
The Nightscaper Conference. This is the third iteration of the Nightscaper Conference, and we have Alyn Wallace coming to it. Are you going to be there for many days? How long are you going to be in the conference? Are you going to do any photography around it?
Of course, man. You think I'm going to come to Utah and do some photography? Like,
I was going to be sad if your schedule didn't allow it. That's awesome. What do you think?
I'm there for I think it's 7, maybe 8 nights. I think it is.
Ooh, awesome.
Yeah, I did the online one last year, and even that was super, super fun. And I said last year, I was like, I really hope next year to come in person. Like last year, we didn't know where the pandemic was going to go. And,
Right.
for me, traveling to America is quite a big thing. But yeah, here we are, man. It's happening. And I'm coming and I'm super excited.
With your coming, have you got, okay, Utah photography is fantastic. The sky is clear. But what's your top 3 that you have to hit in those 7, 8 days?
I haven't even looked into it or thought about it. I kind of normally with my trips, especially when I travel alone, I'll do a lot of research beforehand and scour Google Maps, Google Earth, all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to a conference of Nightscapers, so I kind of just want to go there with no plans and just meet up with some of the most amazing people and follow their guidance and have it be more of a surprise, rather than go in there with expectations and plans. I think it's gonna be really exciting to just go there, see what happens, and see what surprises me, and hang out with some really awesome photographers.
Yeah, awesome. That is what happens. It is really neat to see the camaraderie between everyone who's doing pretty much the same photography in a situation where we all do some of the same settings, some of the same techniques, some of the same even compositions. We all still find a different way to do Milky Way photography. Do you or have you ever thought how to define the Alyn Wallace way of Milky Way photography?
Ooh, I don't know. I remember a couple of years ago, I was like, especially with the way like things like Instagram and stuff go, you kind of feel obliged to have a style to your images. And I was thinking about this a lot, and I was like, the more I think about it, the less it's going to happen. And then it kind of happens naturally over time. And like, people would say that they could recognize one of my images. And I was like, well, how? I don't really do anything that's like the same in every image. And they just like, you just look at an image and you can just tell. So it's like, it's one of those things that over time your style develops and becomes sort of recognizable. I don't do anything to try and develop a style, but I quite just enjoy creating a nice synergy between the foreground and the sky so that they work together very well compositionally. Things line up very nicely. Try and keep the colors as natural as I possibly can, and just create an image that will inspire other people and make them want to try it themselves or make them want to be the person in the photograph or that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Yeah. When you think about the variety that's out there, it still manages to look a little different, or I still manage to recognize my friends. For instance, when Mary Beth Kaczynski puts out an image, I'm like, oh yeah, that's Mary Beth's. I can tell it's her. And it does happen organically. I mean, I'm not sure what mine would be except for the guy who's fine with grain noise guy, I'm not worried about it. I rarely stack. I'm fine with it. I never try and clean it up. I'm not printing. And so that's me. And also the simplicity. I have a question that came through that I want to interrupt with because this is something that's key right now for everyone who might be interested in getting it. But Argus Ray says, Alyn, when is your book going to be released?
It's so we're pretty much on like the final bits and bobs now, tidying up the layout and doing like the contents and the indexing and all that boring stuff. We're going to print it as early as possible, which at the moment is looking like early June. We wanted to print like in early May, but there is a global paper shortage and we've put an offer in for some paper which won't arrive until June at the earliest, unfortunately. And then we've also got World War III to worry about. So as long as that doesn't kick off, I'd like to think that the book will start shipping in June.
Yeah, fair enough. Where could I find some information about the book and send it everyone's way?
There's not much information about the book out there. To be honest, I've talked about it in some of my YouTube videos, but we are looking for images of places around the world. There's a bit of a guide at the end of the book for the best locations in the world. Doesn't necessarily have to be the darkest place in the world. But I haven't traveled everywhere, so we're looking to license images from pretty much all over the world to contribute to that section of the book, and we still have quite a few countries and places to tick off. So if anybody wants to submit images, feel free to go over to the homepage of my website, and there's a little announcement on there. You can follow the link and submit your images.
Okay, awesome. I'm gonna cover up Alyn Wallace's face for a moment here, like I like to
Love
do
doing
every every time. And we're gonna talk about this book, Photographing the Night Sky: Technique, Planning, Processing. And here you can actually submit your images. So if you haven't gone to AlynWallacePhotography.com yet, go over there. Thank Alyn for taking his time this morning and joining us. Hit submit your images if you have any that you would like to. If your images and/or location info is used in the book, you'll be compensated with a free copy of the book on its release during early 2022. For those who do not wish for a copy of the book, we will compensate with cash payment instead. Is any of that still true, Alyn?
Yeah, it's also true.
Awesome. Okay. And if you haven't already, go over to Alyn Wallace's YouTube channel and click subscribe. Wait. Oh, this is not me. Okay, Alyn, I'm not subscribed to your YouTube channel. This is
not again.
Not again. No. This is not me. This is my Gmail to answering my work emails only account, and so that account hasn't subscribed to Alyn, but I am subscribed to you over on my Aaron King Photog Adventures site. So Photog Adventures is subscribed to Alyn Wallace, but now Aaron at photogadventures.com is subscribed to Alyn Wallace as well. So you have 108,000 subscribers plus me, and you can see his other videos out here. What was one of the videos you mentioned that talk about the book? What can I scroll down to?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, like off the top of your head. Come on, go.
In there, but
well, you'll find it in here. He has been talking about what's in the night sky every month for several years. He beat me to it. I was so stoked about doing Astro Primer once a month, but I made mine more complicated, and it was only Milky Way. And it was complicated as well as dumb, just because the Milky Way does the same dang thing every month, and it moves the same way.
You could just use the same video every year.
I know. And it was like, this isn't interesting enough. And if I'd made it to a specific... So dumb, it's genius. Welcome. What's in the night sky? The Milky Way. Here you go. And depending on your location, I'd have to update it. So that's where it got complicated. So I was trying to do like 8 different locations in the world at different latitude lines to give different information. But then it just felt like a word salad. I'm like, and then at 8:45 to 9:55, then and over to, and people got lost so easily. So the Astro Primer was dead, and what was born from it was a much better system of What's in the Night Sky by Alyn Wallace. So everyone, hope you are joining him there and watching that every month. So now let's go ahead and get ready to have Alyn Wallace take over the screen. I'm going to stop showing him for a moment. Alyn, get ready to share your screen, and we're going to go into a short presentation from Alyn that comes from the presentation that he'll be doing at the Nightscaper conference, as well as some pictures and a request that came from one of my followers who would like to see Alyn talk about his setup with the Move, Shoot, Move. So we're going to walk through some of the beginner stuff with Move, Shoot, Move, and make sure that he shows his gear, shows what he's doing with it, and just give a little tip to James and help him out with his decision on getting a Move, Shoot, Move. So we'll be doing some of that here momentarily. So Alyn, if you can share your screen, I will transition back once you share the screen on the Zoom call. Am I blocking you from sharing or anything like that? Hopefully not.
Nope, should be good.
Okay, cool. And as well as what I was saying before, if you have any questions, I'm seeing some good questions for Alyn, comments coming through, as well as all caps. We have lots of good live Q&A questions that will be coming up, and I just want you to please keep them coming. Keep hooking me up with them, as well as Bob over on Facebook. Hey, thanks for telling me to move the chat out of the way in the middle. It wasn't something I was sure whether people hated or loved, and Bob's vote of moving it was enough for me, so happy to oblige. All right, so we're about to get going. Are your friends here yet? Alyn's about to teach. Are your friends watching? Make sure you click share with your own following on Facebook, and let's get rolling. All right, Alyn, take it away, and here you go.
Thank you very much. So yeah, I'm as I've already said enough times in the stream, I think I'm really excited to come out to the Nightscaper conference next month, and I'll be giving 2 talks. One of which is basically a crash course on star trackers. So I'll talk all the basics that you need to know, and hopefully some tips that even seasoned users might not know. I mean, it was only just last month that I was telling Aaron King about the polar sites, which he'd never heard of before. And
exactly.
Now he's been opened up to this revelation. So I'll talk about that in my talk. I'll do a quick demo of the Move, Shoot, Move after this little presentation as well. Awesome. And the second talk I'm going to do is one called Milky Way Season is a Lie. And since I submitted my proposals for this talk, I think the title is a bit bad. I think because Milky Way Season is not necessarily a lie. I don't think people are purposefully trying to mislead you and lie to you. I think people just need to be a little bit better informed about the Milky Way in its entirety. So I'm sure any of you who have looked into Milky Way photography will have come across the term Milky Way season, and they tell you that the Milky Way core, the Milky Way season runs from March to September. And, you get told that in March to April, the Milky Way rises in the southeast before sunrise, which it does, absolutely. In May, June, and July, in the summer months, the Milky Way is found in the south all night. And then as we get to fall in August and September, the Milky Way is found in the southwest after sunset and then sets below the horizon. So just to give you some images to show sort of examples of those different stages of the so-called Milky Way season. So on the left there, an image I took in La Palma in the Canary Islands, probably one of the best places to photograph the stars in Europe. So there you can see the Milky Way core rising in the southeast during the spring months. In summer, the Milky Way gets sort of higher into the sky and it becomes this almost more vertical orientation against the horizon, and it sort of crosses the southern skies and it's out pretty much all night. It's great. You can do Milky Way photography from sunset to sunrise. And then as we get to autumn or fall, as you guys call it out in North America, the Milky Way core begins to set in the southwest. So that image there from the Dolomites in Italy,
That's
very
so good.
incredible place called Trecime di Lavaredo. Really impressive, almost sort of wild west landscape. Really, really cool area. And the reason for the Milky Way season is, of course, the position of Earth and the Sun. So what you can see here is that where should we start? Let's start with, I think this is labeled wrong, actually.
You think it's labeled for a different area on the Earth? June, March, December, September?
I think March and September are the wrong way around.
Oh, okay. We'll all pretend like they're perfectly accurate.
Yeah, March and September the wrong way around. This is an old slide, I think. But during the winter months, you can see that. So if we look at December, the sun is between us and the Milky Way core, so that's why we can't see the Milky Way core outside of March to September. But the issue I have with this so-called Milky Way season is that there's a lot more to the Milky Way than just the core. So if I get a laser pen up or something, you can see my mouse, right?
Yeah, we can. Let me see. Do it again on the stream. I want to watch that move. I'm going to watch it over on the stream. I'm seeing... Okay, yep, I'm seeing your mouse move just fine. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. So, I mean, the Milky Way core is just this little section here, which is the very heart of the spiral galaxy within which we exist, the Milky Way. And this is the very central bulge of the Milky Way. But stretching away from the Milky Way core are these two arms which do spiral within one another, but we can't see that spiral in shape because we're actually inside the Milky Way. But this is an image that encapsulates the entire night sky. This is 360 degrees by 180 degrees, so it was captured from both the northern and the southern hemisphere during different times of the year. But it captures the entire night sky that we can see from Earth. So it's kind of like how we would take the globe and flatten it into a 2D rectangular map. This is basically a map of the entire night sky, and using the galactic plane as a sort of reference for the map. But what you can see here is that the Milky Way core is a tiny bit of the Milky Way. Plane. There's so many other regions of the Milky Way that you can photograph, and the beauty is that you can photograph some part of the Milky Way all year round. If you have a dark, clear night, on any night of the year when the moon is not in the sky, you can photograph some part of the Milky Way. And so this is why I don't like this Milky Way season March to September teachings, because it kind of, especially with beginners who are just getting into this kind of photography, it leads them to thinking that they can only photograph the Milky Way
Right.
between March and September. And then you see, especially in like Facebook groups and that kind of thing, there's people in September that like they're crying because the Milky Way core is gone and they can't photograph the Milky Way anymore. It's like, you can. There's still plenty of regions of the Milky Way that you can still photograph, no matter if you're in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere. So just to show a couple of those, the Great Rift is this dark dust lane which actually blocks our view of the Milky Way. You see this sort of dark, wavy road sort of in front of the Milky Way. And that's actually dust blocking the view of the Milky Way behind. But this is really still a beautiful section of the Milky Way, in my opinion. I mean, yes, the core has a bit more color to it. It's a bit brighter.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean that the other regions of the Milky Way shouldn't be photographed. And the Great Rift kind of continues on after the end of Milky Way core season. So in the image on the left from the Dolomites, you can see a little bit of the core still there, just sort of lingering on the horizon. But as that sets more and more, you're left with just this sort of Great Rift section standing vertically on the horizon. And that sort of stretches from the southwest to the northwest. So now you've opened up a door to west-facing compositions. Whereas with Milky Way, if you're just focusing on the Milky Way core, you're going to be photographing southeast or south or southwest, which means you're very limited to the landscape compositions that you can utilize. Now, after the end of Milky Way core season, you've got this Great Rift section of the Milky Way standing vertically on the west, and that's going to open up so many more new landscape compositions for you. Another section I really love photographing is the Cygnus region. This is a really bright, fuzzy region of the Milky Way. It's full of stunning nebulae, like the North American Nebula, which, you guys should definitely be photographing. There's a nebula that looks like North America on a map. You should be damn proud of that.
Yeah, no kidding. And when I look at this, I'm always thinking about those with star trackers who are pulling this out the most, or those with astro-modified cameras. So for those who are thinking, I've captured the Milky Way, I can see it with my gear, no tracker, no astro-modification, what do you say to them?
Well, I mean, the thing with like the Cygnus region, for example, it's bright and it's fuzzy and it's going to look beautiful even if your camera is not astro modified.
Okay.
So the image on the right, for example, if I took that with a stock camera, which wasn't modified, the only difference would be the lack of pink color that you see sort of scattered in the Milky Way. The Milky Way would be a bit more white and fuzzy. So you just wouldn't have these little pink jewels in the Milky Way. That's all the astro modification is doing. It's picking up this sort of deep red pink light. So it's not going to make a significant difference to the brightness and the appearance of the Milky Way other than this extra splash of pink. So if you don't have an astro modified camera, seriously, don't worry about it.
Yes.
And the image on the left is what's now commonly becoming known as a deep scape. So it's like a deep sky image with some sort of foreground interest. Is this little section of the Cygnus region here with the North American Nebula and the Sauda region, very low on the horizon. One of the darkest horizons I've ever seen in my life. That was in the Atacama Desert in Chile. I mean, look at the amount of stars on the horizon. I haven't composited this. This was the actual position of that bit of the Milky Way on the horizon. And again, when you're doing deep sky stuff, because you're tracking and you're doing long exposures, you actually pick up a bit of the pink red light, even with the stock camera anyway, because stock cameras do collect this light. They just don't collect as much as astro modified cameras. So it's like 25% of the light from hydrogen alpha is what you record with a stock camera. So you will still get a bit of that pink and red even with a stock camera.
Yeah,
again,
and before you change the slide, too, I want to interject that anyone with any gear should go out and try and do this throughout the whole year as you have opportunities in the winter to see this on our horizon. And that if you really, 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 really want to see more of those pinks, even without getting an astro-modified camera or a different camera or tracking it for 2 minutes, you can use what is called the Lrgb method, where you in post-processing 40 stacked images, following what Ian Norman teaches on Lonely Spec on his YouTube channel, you can bring out more of those pinks and colors in there with some great effort in Photoshop. It's absolutely possible. Don't throw away your gear just yet, and definitely go out and do it.
Yeah, 100%, man. And going back to what I was saying with the previous region of the Milky Way that we talked about, the Great Rift, with the Cygnus region, that falls into the northeast as the Great Rift sets, and then the Cygnus region kind of bends over the northern horizon and then rises in the northeast and into the east. So you've now got compositions of the Milky Way in any direction you want. You've got the Milky Way core from the southeast to the southwest. You've got the Great Rift from the west, southwest to the northwest, and then you've got the Cygnus region from the northwest to the northeast or east even. So you can now photograph the Milky Way in any direction, in any composition that you find. You just have to go at the right time of year. And then there are some regions of the Milky Way that you can only see from the southern hemisphere, for example. And
that's intense.
Yeah, I'm so jealous of these guys in the southern hemisphere, man. They've got it so good down there. This image on the, well, they're both from the Atacama Desert, actually. The image on the right is not mine. It's a friend of mine, Adrian Mordrit, who's known online as Nightlights Films. But the image on the left is again a really bright fuzzy region of the Milky Way that's full of jewels, and it runs from the famous Crux constellation, which is just here, otherwise known as the Southern Cross, and then down to another constellation called Carina, and you've got this beautiful nebula called the Carina Nebula. It's a beast. It's really big. It's got beautiful hydrogen alpha emissions in it, which you will pick up even with a non-astro modified camera, because it's such a bright region of hydrogen alpha. Next to the Crux, you've got this dark nebula called the Coal Sac Nebula. And the first time I saw this, I felt like, you know, that scene from Lord of the Rings when Frodo looks into that, like, he looks into that glass ball and he's just like, he just sees pure darkness for the first time.
Yeah.
That is how I felt when I looked at the Coal Sac Nebula, because like I was in like a portal 1/2, and the night sky's pretty dark in itself, but there's something about the Coal Sac Nebula that is so eerily dark compared to already what is a portal class 1/2 sky. And like even to the naked eye, you could just see like this patch of black. It's really, really interesting. So this is a really cool region of the Milky Way, and it's right next to that's the small Magellanic Cloud there, and the large Magellanic Cloud is just there as well. So,
oh darn, it's blocked by that bush.
So good down there in the southern hemisphere. And found this really cool goat skull, which still had like hair and stuff on it. So I did this focus stack to really make it nice and big and sharp in the frame, and it just sort of really gives off this portrayal of how sort of desolate and unforgiving the landscape of the Atacama Desert can be.
Yeah, that looks awesome. I love that image. It's too bad the large Magellanic Cloud had to get ditched, but everything else is amazing about it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, concessions.
Exactly.
And then the image on the right is the part of the Milky Way that runs through the Vela constellation, and inside the Vela constellation you've got this Gum Nebula, and it's enormous in the sky. It's absolutely huge. I think it's the largest nebula in terms of apparent size in the sky. It's absolutely massive, but this is something that you would really need an astro-modified camera for, otherwise you won't pick up this red color, because it's quite faint, but with an astro-modified camera you're picking up 4 times the amount of that red light, so picks up really, really nicely. But again, just such an interesting, cool region of the night sky. As you can see, lots of bright, different colored stars in the region. You've got some yellow stars, some blue stars, and then all of this this beautiful hydrogen alpha emissions. So
it's really striking, Alan. Before you move on from that image, can you go pop back to that last slide? Because just looking at that image of seeing that intimate stretch of sky, that is just a tiny part of it when you look at it in a giant panorama, but focusing on just that intimate section, narrow casting to just see that nebula, that color of pink, and then bringing in a foreground. It's starting to become more and more popular to do these deep sky landscape shots where you focus on something far enough away that a long telephoto lens to get the sky this gigantic that the foreground still looks interesting. Have you done any of this deep sky landscape photography yet yourself?
Myself?
Yeah, have you done anything like that where you've got, like, say, maybe Orion just gigantic in the frame and it's far enough away from the top of a building or a top of a peak that the peak becomes a feature in the foreground even though it's miles from you?
I've done a few. I mean, the image on screen now, just to clarify, is not really, I wouldn't call it a deepscape image. That's probably a 14 millimeter lens panorama. That
Really?
nebula is huge. Yeah,
I'm
it's
assuming
huge.
it's much smaller, so that is a wide angle shot
No,
still.
it's massive. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, going back to deepscapes, I mean, we've done a few things with like Pleiades and maybe Orion, and of course the one you saw on the previous page with the North American nebula. I don't know. I'm for me this. I'm. God, how can I word this? I always find that they always even. God, I can't get this out. They never really look natural. I always find them quite weird to look at, and I always wonder how people who have no knowledge in astrophotography look at those images and portray them, seeing
Fair,
like
yeah.
this giant galaxy in the sky or this giant nebula. Even though our images, my wide-angle images, look nothing like what you see with the naked eye because of all the colors and the detail in the dark areas. I don't know. There's something about deepscapes that hasn't really excited me a lot. I mean, I dabble in them and I try them, but I do wonder how they're portrayed and what people get from them. And
I understand that. They almost look photoshopped despite being legit.
yeah, it's very difficult to make them look natural, and most of them kind of just look like someone's taken a deep sky image and put a foreground in front of it.
Yeah,
You know?
a fuzzy
Because
foreground for some reason.
the processing is often quite different when you're processing deep sky images. You process them in a completely different way to what you would with a landscape image, because with a deep sky image, you're trying to really pull out a faint detail, get really extreme with contrast curves and that stuff, and get the background sky nice and black and remove the background light pollution and whatever, the air glow. But when you try and blend that on a foreground that hasn't had that kind of level of extreme processing done to it, like you said, they always kind of look a little bit photoshopped
Yeah.
and weird.
That makes sense.
So it is, sometimes it comes out quite natural, but it's very rare to have that kind of opportunity. But yeah.
You know, Chris Whiting from the chat is saying that Alan has a cool row near deep. It's like a near deepscape with row in it. Do you know? Which image
Oh,
he's
that was a
referring
really
to?
fun. Wait, am I sharing my screen or a
I'll
tab?
just jump over to me so that you can go jump around, and then once you're ready, I'll come back to your screen. So now we're looking at me nice and big. We had a question that came over here on Facebook that was coming from Lori. Well, first it came from Kristen. I just want to read it out loud. Utah is amazing to photograph, especially Moab. Can anyone join the Utah photo excursion? I mean, she didn't even know what it was called. She's like, what is this Utah photo excursion that I'm jealous of already? This is the first time I'm hearing about it, and I'd love to be a part of it. Also, I recommend Alan visit/photograph Big Sur, California when he's in the U.S. So there's a recommendation for you, Alan. Go to Big Sur. I've been
Awesome.
there too. It is awesome. So Christina was answered that, yeah, okay, you can join us absolutely at the nightscaper.com website. So right here below me on this side is nightscaper.com. And if you aren't aware of this excursion/conference/night photographer camaraderie get together, then make sure you come out to nightscaper.com and sign up. And Amy asks, I think it was Amy knows Lori. Lori, she goes, hey, I can't make it in person, but will all sessions be recorded and available for a replay ticket? And I want to emphasize that the answer to that is yes. Replay only tickets are available here, but there's some early bird pricing that's happening right now, and there's only some availability of the early bird pricing. So if you are on the fence, or like Chris Whiting, who's trying to get off work to go to Nightscaper, and you're just on the fence, I would recommend going in there, signing up right away, and getting that early bird pricing. So go right now, nightscaper.com, and register, and then just give it to a friend if you can't make it, because that friend would love to be there and take advantage of that early bird pricing. So go to nightscaper.com if you have any questions about that. But I'm seeing Alan's row in the background, so I am gonna shut up. Check that out. That looks awesome, Alan. Go ahead and tell us how you captured
Yeah,
this.
thanks for Chris for reminding me about this image, 'cause I completely forgot about it. But yeah, this was probably one of the first deepscapes that I tried, and it was, God, it must have been about 4 or 5 years ago now. But that was a joint effort with a friend of mine, Adrian Morduit, who I just talked about. He's known as Night Lights Films on social media. And so we worked on this together because it was quite difficult to get me into the right position so that I actually lined up with Ro Fuki. I mean, it was something that would have been really difficult to do on my own because I'm actually really far away from the camera. This was a 135 millimeter lens, the Samyang 135 millimeter f2 on a Star Tracker. And we tried a couple of different poses, and this one was my favorite, where it's kind of like Ro Fuki's bursting out of my chest.
Yeah.
We did another one which was like a Hadouken from Street Fighter, some kind of like casting Ro Fuki into the sky. That was really fun. Amazing. And there's a video on my YouTube channel of the behind the scenes of this, and Adrian also did an edit of the data in his own style as well. So it was interesting to see how the two edits were different, and yeah, it was really fun.
It's really gorgeous to see it that close where you can actually tell the globular cluster right there on the right, and well as the colors of each of these sections of Rofuki, but then to take advantage of the dust trail going all the way down to the horizon and making it look like you said, this looks natural despite being giant. It's just confusing for a moment as to how it works, since this is typically an inch in your photo, and now it's become 700 feet in this photo.
Yeah, I mean, this was taken in La Palma, which is, some of the best skies you can find in Europe, certainly. I think the key to these as well is just not making sure that the sky is not darker than the foreground. I see that quite a lot. And if you ever take a photograph of the night sky, no matter where you are, the sky will always be brighter than the foreground, unless there's like a giant light in the foreground or something. If you're in a dark region and you take a photo, when it comes out as a raw, the sky is always going to be brighter than the foreground. But then you quite often see people really crunching the blacks when they're doing these deepscapes, but try not to get the sky completely black, but kind of leave it a little bit brighter than the foreground, and sort of helps to make them look a bit more natural, I suppose.
Yeah, that looks awesome. Thank you. I'll jump back to me so you can get back into your presentation and then go for it. Andrea Boyle just said, just got my early bird conference, as I will be on another workshop in Utah during conference time. So that's sweet. Andrea will be here, and she's coming. So she gets to meet Alyn in person as well as myself if she's interested. Hey, Andrea, I hope you hang out with me too. And I'll be there, tired as ever, as we go out every night of the conference. I keep trying not to do that, but I can't. It's going to be something we do. We'll sleep when we're dead, right? That's
Sleep
the goal.
is for the week.
Sleep is for the week. All right. So that was a really good tangent to go off of. I enjoyed it. I think everyone else did too. Let's carry on.
Yeah. So just another slide, just to mention that when we in the conference, I'm going to talk a bit about sort of planning these images. So this is me. There's no need to go into much detail now, but just me using photobills to plan an image of the Great Rift section of the Milky Way in the west. With a really nice composition I found. So I'll talk about stuff like this in the conference and go into a bit more detail about it. But
I love that image of the lighthouse. That is such a gorgeous one. This is, when I asked down in the beginning, like, what do you see Alyn Wallace's Milky Way photography style as? One word I would describe his style as is cobalt clean. He has a lot of cobalt colors in his shots, and they're just so dang clean. I almost cussed there because it's just so nice seeing how his foreground is this soft, clean foreground working with the sky, where a lot of mine are these grainy, contrasty foregrounds with a nice sky, and I need to take on a little Alyn Wallace in my photography.
Well, when we hook up together in America, we can...
Let's do it.
We can merge our styles into it.
Let's make the best Crater Lake panel we've ever seen. Let's do it. Oh
God, yes.
Yes, please.
So yeah, I'll just go into I'll do a little live demo of the Move Ship Move Star Tracker, because my other talk is the crash course on Star Trackers, and I'm not sure who it was, but somebody asked about my setup for the Move Ship Move Tracker.
Yeah, we'd like to see that setup, because James was curious about getting which Star Tracker to go and get into, and he really likes the Move Shoot Move, and he's curious about your specific setup and how you use it.
Yeah, cool. So because I travel a lot and I hike up mountains quite a lot as well, I like to keep things nice and small and portable, which is perfect with the Move Shoot Move, because it's very small and portable. And I also like to work quite quickly and with as little fuss as possible. So usually on my tripod, so obviously this is not the tripod that I would use when I'm out and about in the field. But usually on my tripod, I've got either a ball head, or more recently I've been using a two-way head a lot more. Not this exact one, a different one from Leo Photo.
Here, Alan, real quick, let me interrupt you. Do you have another slide that you want to share, or should we go full screen on you?
No, let's go full screen for the Move Shit Move demo.
Yeah, go ahead and kill your screen and go full screen. So you have a share screen going on with Zoom. Kill that, and then I'll make you full screen over here. Let me double check that it's there. And I am just going to move one element here so you don't see mine and Matt's face in the background, distracting away from awesome imagery of Alyn Wallace. Okay, so I have you nice and big now, and go. So show us that tripod, that small, tiny tripod that you're talking about.
Some people compensate with big tripods, but
I do.
So yeah, I mean, imagine this is a full-size tripod, and I would normally have a ball head or a two-way head. A two-way head basically allows you to pan, and that also allows you to tilt. And I've been using one of those a lot recently because, well, actually, I'm going to talk about that in a YouTube video, so I won't get into it. But let's say for demonstration purposes, this is my tripod, and I've got my two-way head on there. I don't want to waste time removing that tripod head and putting on an equatorial wedge or some other kind of mount to align my star tracker. So actually, let me just show.
Yeah, go ahead and grab it. I know that myself, I go into my gear and I put on the EQ wedge like you're holding right there, and then it is extra effort to go back and forth. So I'm curious about what you're doing here.
Yeah, so this is a, God, it's got many names. Everyone seems to call them different things, but it's called an equatorial wedge, which is basically, it allows you to get accurate polar alignment for a star tracker, because you can pan and tilt in very small increments and make sure that your star tracker is perfectly aligned with the North Celestial Pole. But the thing is, when you're doing wide angle Milky Way photography, so wide angle astrophotography, landscape astrophotography, you don't need this level of precision in your polar alignment. It doesn't need to be that accurate. So you can actually do polar alignment with a ball head or a two-way head, and that's what I'll prefer to do because it's so much quicker and easier. And then I keep my Move Shit Move tracker, everything I need to get tracking, in this little case here, which slots into my bag so nicely.
Oh yeah,
it's the case that comes with the Move Shit Move as well, which is great. And so neatly packed like a Tetris master is a very small ball head. Again, I just much prefer to have lightweight, small equipment that does the job. So I've got a very small ball head. Some people like to put a big ass ball head on top of the thing, but I really like just this little ball head. It's a Benro IH0, I think. It's a very lightweight, small ball head. Got my MSM tracker, the Move Shit Move tracker, and then a mount with the laser. So first things first, I've got an Arca Swiss plate on the Move Shit Move tracker. You can either put it on the bottom here, or you can put it on the bottom. It can make a difference depending on what your latitude is, but I won't go into that now. But I've got an Arca Swiss ready, so I could just straight away just put the tracker on my tripod.
Okay.
And then I've got that tiny little ball head, which I can just screw on the top of the tracker. Happy days.
Right.
I'll rotate the two-way head so that my tracker is pointing north towards the North Celestial Pole because I'm in the Northern Hemisphere. And then the next thing is you've got to get the angle of the tracker correct so that this axis of rotation is going to point at the North Celestial Pole, which is the point of the night sky that doesn't move. Everything turns circles around that point. So we want to make sure that our axis of rotation is pointing at that point, and then it'll turn our camera in sync with the stars moving in the night sky. And what's great about two-way heads is that they have degree markings So you
Yeah,
can
nice.
see how much you're tilting your device. And the reason this is really useful is that the North Celestial Pole, the point in the night sky that we're trying to aim at, the height of that above the horizon is equal to your latitude on planet Earth. So I'm in the Brecon Beacons in Wales, which is 51 degrees north. Polaris and the North Celestial Pole is going to be 51 degrees above the horizon. So the easy way to think about that, if that's kind of confusing to you, is that if you were on the North Pole, you're standing on top of Earth and Earth is spinning. So when you look up, Polaris and the North Celestial Pole is going to be 90 degrees above the horizon. And you're on top of Earth and you're spinning and everything's spinning around. And the point of sky that's directly above you is where Polaris is going to be the North Star. And the further south you head down the Earth, the further closer Polaris is going to get to the horizon. And if you're at the equator, well, you wouldn't really be able to see the North Celestial Pole because it would be right at the horizon. Kind of just about see both the North and South Celestial Poles. But anyway, knowing that the North Celestial Pole is at an angle above the horizon equal to your latitude, you just dial in your latitude here. So I'm 51 degrees north at the moment, and I'll dial in 51 degrees on my tilt. I'm facing north, I've got 51 degrees tilt on. That's pretty much a decent rough polar alignment.
Wow, nice.
And usually for me, that's probably going to be good enough if I'm doing wide angle Milky Way stuff. Just to
Okay.
double check, I got the laser mount. So there's a little laser. You can see that.
Yeah, oh,
Little
yeah.
green laser with a mount that goes onto the move, shoot, move tracker. And that laser is now going to make a big beam in the sky that's perfectly aligned with the axis of rotation of the device. So I can double check that my laser is pointing at Polaris on the North Celestial Pole, just to make sure that my polar alignment is pretty good. And again, when you're doing wide angle stuff, 14 millimeter, 24 millimeter, 35 millimeter, maybe even a 50 millimeter, you don't need super accurate polar alignment. Just aim it north, get the tilt angle correct, and you should be able to do 2 or 3 or 4 minute exposures with a wide angle lens. And that's pretty much it. I'm good to go. I can stick my camera on this little ball head on top. Another thing I really love about this ball head is that it's just got a single knob, which once you unlock, you can kind of move your camera in any direction. And I love the simplicity of that. When you're working in the dark and you might not want to turn your head torch on, it's nice that there's just a singular knob and you can feel that, you can unlock it. Some ball heads have like friction knobs and panning knobs, and they can have lots of different dials and knobs. And like when you're working in the dark, it can get quite confusing. So having the simplicity of just a singular knob that unlocks the ball head entirely, it is really awesome. So yeah, that's my setup pretty much. And then I could just take all that off if I want and pack it back up in my bag. But I like that I don't have to take off the ball head that I'm already using on my tripod. Just stick my setup on top. It's very lightweight. It's very portable, quick and easy. Great for Milky Way stuff. And you
Oh,
can get
yeah.
5% off with code Alyn at the checkout.
Oh, yeah, please do. So if they're going to Move, Shoot, Move and trying to buy any of this gear, use code ALYN, Allen. And you can get 5%. Awesome. So thank you for going and running through that. That, I'm sure, is gold for James, and so he is stoked about that. We're sitting right now with 7 minutes left to the hour, so we're going to jump in and get going on some of the Q&A questions that have come through here. And I'm just going to scroll to the very beginning and deal with some of these questions that are going to be off topic from a tracker questions that have popped up recently, but we'll start from the very, very front. So here we go. The first one that is popping up is... Alan, I just watched your presentation from last year. It was great, from Kirk. So I love the adventure spirit, from Justin. Hank says, I'm happy to see Alan. Been following since the beginning. Hope to meet him someday. I have a funny question for both of you. Did you guys ever have funny fan encounters? Have you ever had a funny fan encounter?
Funny. I was trying to think. The first time I was recognized in public was really weird because I was in Tenerife and I just pulled into a lay-by and a car pulled in behind me. And then I think I'm not sure if I had a friend in the car. Yeah, I think my friend was in the car. So I was talking to my friend in the car. And then somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, you're Alyn Wallace." And I was like, "What? How did you know?" And he was like, "Because it's pitch black. It's like a bottle class 3." And he was like, "I recognize your voice from YouTube." And I was like, "What? That's like the first time I've been recognized, and I've been recognized in the dark. That's like that's such an astrophotographer's way to be recognized." So,
Isn't it crazy?
yeah. And there was another one like just last week I was coming back from Antarctica and a follower stopped me in the airport, but I'd like just got off the plane. I was walking to like customs and passport check-in, and some guy just kind of walked up to me. He was like, "Alyn, I have to stop you." And I was like, "Oh shit, I'm getting like a random check or something." And he was like, "No, I'm just a follower. I really like your work."
Oh man, I'm gonna throw myself in here real quick just because Hank issued that to both of us, but it happened the same way for me. It's so crazy to be walking by someone talking something and someone goes, "Hey, aren't you Aaron King, Photog Adventures?" I'm like, yeah, how did you know? I could recognize your voice from the podcast or from the YouTube video. It's just so bizarre to be in complete dark and have someone recognize your voice and be like, "Oh, that's the laugh I know. You're Aaron King, aren't you?" Like, yeah. It's a bizarre feeling. I was just at Mono Lake this weekend, and I was reminded of the last time I was there. I was helping out a workshop, and there was another guy off to the side. And I'm like, "Are we in your way? Are we bothering you at all? This guy doesn't have any lights on, but he's going to use his laser real quick to get polar line. Is that going to be a problem?" He goes, "I had no problem, Aaron." I'm like, "Wait a sec. You know my name? How did you know my name?" He goes, "Oh, I've been following your podcast and YouTube for a while." And so it's just bizarre. It's funny because it doesn't feel like it's supposed to be happening. It's like, oh, that's crazy. Right. But the astrophotography group is just such a small knit group, and
and you go to such specific places as well.
Exactly what I was going to say. You go to these specific place for astro, and it's like very likely you're going to run into someone who's at least seen your video and put a thumbs down on it at least once. So yeah, thank Hank for that question. I'm going to ask a Royce Bear question that I'm sure everyone's curious about, but let me just do this one out of order from Facebook. Luann says, can Alyn make a complete get list of his gear components for the Move Shoot Move setup? Do you have those anywhere on your website already? Like
complete list. I've got a complete list of the gear that I use on my website. Yeah, it's alynwallacephotography.com/gear.
Okay, did I close alynwallace.com yet? Let me pull that up and overlap our faces and actually get rid of my face. Okay, goodbye, Aaron, and gone. When you go into Alyn Wallace's photography, alynwallacephotography.com, and you go in there, Luann, you're going to see on his homepage a menu up here in the top right that you're not seeing, and there's an option for gallery, time-lapse, workshops, presets, gear. Click on the word gear, and that will give you his video on it as well as a list of all the gear and lenses that he uses. So make sure you go to alynwallacephotography.com and you will get those answers of what he's using. And then make sure to use his discount over on Move Shoot Move and get that Alyn, ALYN.
Yeah, I mean the tracker and the laser are what come with it. The little ball head that I use on top, I think it's like a Benro IH1 or IH0. And everything else you can find on that page on my website.
Okay, awesome. We're going to get through all these questions as fast as possible and let Alyn go. It's 11:58, but we have at least 10 more minutes. We'll hang out here and answer questions. Royce Bear asks, before and after the Nightscaper conference, where in the USA are you planning to visit?
Wherever Royce wants to take me, man.
He would be honored to have you take him, Royce.
I mean, I'm there for a week in Utah, in Canab, so whatever's around that area and whoever wants to go shoot. And then I'm coming back to America in June to Oregon with Aaron. And
yes.
Then at the end of July, I'm in Colorado. And I think in between those two, I'm going to try maybe Yosemite, and I'd love to go down to Joshua Tree. I really, really, really want to photograph the fireflies. I want to photograph a rocket launch. It's just so much I want to do.
Just a word of caution. Joshua Tree has a lot of locations that are into the light pollution in July with that southern Milky Way. So go soon if you can. Like when you arrive, maybe go to Joshua Tree earlier on your trip if you can make that happen. Just because it gets towards Yucca Valley and Palm Springs, and the light pollution has a pretty good bloom going.
Better in the southeast, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay,
if you
that's
can go
interesting.
earlier in the year or get it right at the beginning of the night, you'll want to fight as much light pollution. And on that note, we do have a question about any tips of editing Milky Way overshot with like a light polluted area. Anything in your post processing that you would give advice for on dealing with. We also have another question about recommended night pollution filters. Just kind of blend all your light pollution advice into a one quick Cliff Notes answer.
I kind of talked about this in a recent YouTube video about Milky Way tips, and it's not going to be the advice you want to hear, but there's no magic trick you can do to unveil the Milky Way from light pollution. There's light pollution filters are marketed as light pollution filters, but they're not actually very good as light pollution filters, to be honest. They don't really help to unveil much extra contrast in the Milky Way, if I'm perfectly honest, especially now that more people, more towns and cities are switching to white LEDs. So if you're in a light polluted area, some things that you can do, altitude helps. If there are any mountains nearby, get as high as you possibly can and get above the light pollution if you can. Sometimes you get cloud inversions where you get fog and clouds in valleys that cover light pollution, but otherwise you just can't beat finding darker skies.
Yeah.
One thing, maybe, I mean, what I see too often is people in light polluted areas just really processing the hell out of the images and just it just doesn't look good. Stop trying to force it. Just enjoy what you have. Make the foreground more interesting. And if you want to make the Milky Way brighter, stop trying to bring it out. Make everything else darker. Add a
Nice.
strong vignette to your entire image, and then the Milky Way will stand out more because it'll be the brightest thing in the image. Rather than what you see, like people getting the brush tool, brushing over the Milky Way and slamming the contrast. It just looks so fake and everybody knows it. So rather than trying to force the Milky Way out, make everything else darker. Or
Awesome
just go and find
advice.
some dark skies. You won't regret it.
Yep, exactly. And I'm spoiled out here. I just go away from light pollution, so I don't have any advice for that. So that's awesome advice. Vinova asked another question. The last one we'll ask about locations, but he says
Shout
outside
out
of.
to Andrea Boyle, one of my Patreon supporters. She's plugging my Patreon in the chat.
Oh, really? Nice job, Andrea. Yes. Everyone join Andrea as a
She was on my live
patron.
stream last night as well. Legend.
She is a legend. She keeps coming back and forth. Vinova says, outside of Utah, where is a place that you would love to shoot that you still haven't? Anywhere in the world outside of Utah.
Oh, anywhere in the world?
Yeah.
Oh my god, how long have you got?
1 minute.
I'd love to go to let's think, New Zealand, Australia, like the west coast of Australia, the outback of Australia, the Maldives. I'd love to go. I don't know, photograph some volcanoes in Indonesia, or there's so much that I want to do.
The top one on your list. Like if you heard that, you know what, this root canal is going to kill you, you'll be alive for 10 more weeks. Where would you make sure you go?
Probably New Zealand.
Yeah, that's the top.
Yeah,
Jacinda
yeah.
Ardern, let us come back. Let us come back to New Zealand.
Yeah, right.
So then I've got some funny comments like Milky Way season is fake news. Light pollution filters are
Yeah.
a hoax.
That's a better title.
SM Wilkes asks, would there be any tips about editing a Milky Way that's been shot over a large lake foreground? Do you have anything that stands out to you with tips on that specific scenario?
I think I'm gonna make a video very soon about some editing tips for the Milky Way, because I just did 7 tips for better Milky Way photography, which was more practical tips of capturing the shots. So I think I'm gonna follow that up with a video on my YouTube channel about Milky Way editing tips now. When you're photographing the Milky Way over a lake, I think the biggest consideration that I would have is reflections. Sometimes if you're treating the sky and foreground separately, so for example, if you're using a star tracker on the sky and then you take separate exposures for your foreground, a lot of people forget to line up the stars with their reflections, because by the time you finish taking your sky images, the stars have moved and the reflections don't line up anymore. So keep that in mind, work as quickly as you possibly can, and just make sure when you blend the sky on that the reflections of the Milky Way line up with the reflections in the lake.
Awesome. And on that same note of handling sort of panoramas or a specific scenario, Ahmed asks, if you're using a panorama on a tracker, what focal length do you tend to go for?
If I'm doing a panorama on a tracker, I use my Star Tracker platform.
Do, do, do. And if you're thinking about doing a panorama on the tracker, you're going to love it. So definitely take on the challenge, no matter how much time it takes. You'll just end up with like one composition a night when you do a panorama tracker. So it's just get prepared on a tracker to spend lots of time to make it work. So what
Oh,
were you
sorry.
going to grab? You got it?
Yeah. So this is my. So what happens with a star tracker? Oh, I literally packed it all away. But as you saw earlier, when I set up my star tracker, it leaves your camera at a really awkward angle. And this is why I designed and invented this star tracker platform. You basically put it on top of the star tracker, and then you can put the ball head on top of that, and it basically allows you to sort of correct the angle between the star tracker and the ball head on top, or the two-way head on top. And that just gives you a nice flat level base to work from, because when you're doing panoramas, it makes your life a lot easier if you've got a nice flat level in base to work from, and you can pan your camera and do panoramas much easier. So I'll definitely use that if I was doing a tracked panorama. And most of my tracked panoramas would be probably with a 24mm lens. But then when the scene allows it, when the composition works quite well, I'd love to do it with a 50mm as well. And I've got a video on YouTube of a tracked 85mm panorama that I did of the Milky Way above Stonehenge. So definitely worth checking that out as well.
Awesome. Please be checking out his site and all his videos coming up. If you haven't subscribed by now, make sure you thank him by doing this. Scrolling down to the next question. Which lens do you prefer for astro? He says specifically on a Sony. Do you work with a Sony only for your Milky Way photography, or are you using other camera bodies?
Yeah, I'm Sony only. It makes more sense to stick with one brand so you can swap the lenses between your cameras. But I'm Sony, and my favorite lens is absolutely the 24mm f1.4 G Master by a long shot. Yeah, I've got two of those lenses. That's how much I like it.
That's how much you love it. He says comparison between like the Sony 14mm f1.8 or the Sigma 14 to 24 f2.8. Which would you choose?
I am I'm exclusively a prime shooter now. I can't remember the last time I used a zoom lens.
Right on.
I always use prime lenses. You just get such cleaner images with those wider apertures, less vignetting and all that good stuff. So I've been pretty exclusively a prime shooter for a few years now.
All right. This is a question for maybe both of us, but Christina asks, should a point and shoot pro, aka novice, join the conference? If you're doing point and shoot photography only at this point, would the conference be too much for you? What do you think?
I'm going to let you answer that one.
I'll take on that question because that's a little bit of a challenge. But basically, Kristen, the answer is yes, because you're going to get set up with a foundation on what to do with this new camera that has all those settings that you'll be controlling in manual. While they seem overwhelming and a difficult challenge to take on, they really aren't. The exposure triangle is simple. And when you look about astrophotography, we make it even more simple by saying keep your lens as open as you possibly can. That's the only decision you're making. You're never thinking between f11 or f8. You never even think about that stuff. You just focus on making it as wide open as possible and then shoot your ISO what you need. If you're going to start track, you keep it low. If you're not start tracking, you keep it higher. You're going to learn a lot of tips. One, single image Milky Way photography, tracked image Milky Way photography, panorama, stacking. You're going to learn all of that and have a foundation at the conference that's really going to set you up strong. So whether or not you've ever been a DSLR shooter, you are not going to suffer at all. So please join us at the Nightscaper conference. You will not regret it, but you will come away having felt that you drank from a fire hose. That's just going to be the bottom line. So now a question for Alyn. Oh no, I think it scrolled down too far. Does Alyn? Where's that question? I had a does Alyn question and it just scrolled to the bottom. Thank you, YouTube. Does Alyn? Hey, there it is. From Luann. Does Alyn use any other trackers besides the MSM?
I do indeed. The MSM I use, it's the one that pretty much lives in my bag for the most part. It's good for traveling and hiking. But when I want to do more demanding stuff like longer focal length lenses like 135 or my Sony 100 to 400, I use the Skywatcher Star Adventurer Pro. And that's when I'll do a lot more accurate polar alignment and be a bit more methodical about setting up and that kind of stuff.
Right on. Okay, we're down to our last few questions before we're going to let Alyn go and the stream will be over. So I want every one of you 72 on YouTube right now, if you haven't clicked the thumbs up yet, give Alyn a thank you by hitting that thumbs up button. Help us out by hitting thank you there. Brian asks you, how important is a sturdy tripod for the wide field tracked images?
Um, Depends on the wind situation. I actually use a tripod that I don't think is most professionals would consider sturdy. To be honest, it's quite a lightweight. It's a good carbon fiber tripod, but it's pretty lightweight and not exactly big and heavy and sturdy. But the biggest issue is going to be wind. If it's windy, it's going to be a bit more difficult with that kind of tripod. But what I do is I'll put big rocks lean them on the tripod legs to keep it nice and still and sturdy. I will stand in a way that my body is blocking the wind from my camera, and I will usually hold one or two legs and sort of push the tripod into the ground and hold on to it for dear life whilst I'm waiting for the exposure to finish. Most of the time I can get away with it, but yeah, wind is going to be the biggest factor in that question.
Understood. Okay, and another question. Andrea says, Alyn, you aren't using your V or Z mounts? And that was a question that came through when you were showing off your setup.
Yeah.
When you went into panorama, you pulled out your panorama head, or you called it a tracker mount, a tracker. I can't remember what you called it.
Tracker mount, or V or C or V mounts.
So you have your V bracket there that you.
Sorry, the Star Tracker platform is what I originally called it, but now it's on sale. It's the Z or V mount. But yeah, I didn't use it there. I mean, for sort of single shots or two shot panoramas, I wouldn't bother putting it on because it's so much quicker to just use the ball head. But when I'm doing panoramas, I'll definitely put them on.
Okay, and then going into the next question from Alyn, what is the brand and model of the two-way head Alyn showed us? What was that one that you had at the very bottom connected to your tripod?
This one, which I don't recommend, is from Andorra, but the one I'm actually using most of the time now is the Leofoto VH30R, and there's a link on my website on the gear page. The reason it's better than this one is because this one only has a singular release knob. The Leofoto has two, and one of them provides friction, so that when you unlock the tilt, your camera doesn't just fall down. There's a bit of friction there, so you can move it a lot more smoothly. This one doesn't have the friction lock.
And that thing right there you use exclusively typically when you're hiking, or even if you're driving up to a location, you'll use that. That setup, is that just to keep it light, or is that your setup when you're just
the head?
Yeah, that little 2.8 head on your tripod first, and then everything else.
The reason I've been loving the 2A head, the Leofoto one, is so I normally like ball heads, but their ball heads are not very good for polar alignment. They're not very good for multi-row panoramas. What I found with the 2A head is that it's really good for normal use. So you can pan and you can tilt. So you can adjust the composition a bit more controlled. You can use it as a very good star tracker mount because it's got the degree markings to get the tilt right. It's very good for doing panoramas because, again, you've got those degree markings and you can see how much you're moving your camera each time you pan and tilt. So it's really good for panoramas. It's really good for a star tracker. It's really good for general use. And especially with that Leofoto one that I use, it's really good for telephoto lenses because you can pan and tilt in very small increments. So when I'm photographing the moon with a telephoto lens, it's really good. And so, yeah, it's a head that's a jack of all trades, let's say. It does everything that a landscape astrophotographer needs to do, and it does them all quite well. So I've been enjoying that.
Awesome. In that same vein of dealing with what your gear and lens can handle, with your setup, what kind of weight can it support? Luann says, so she says, I use a Sony A7 III and the 12-24 G Master f2.8, starting to worry about weight. What kind of weight can your setup support like you just showed us, you think?
What was the lens?
Her specific was the 12-24 G Master f2.8.
Yeah, I don't think it's that big. I mean, is she worried about that on the Move Shoot Move?
She just mentioned her specific gear, and she's curious already if, A7 III plus that is anything to worry about with that exact setup that you're using.
No, I wouldn't say so, no.
Awesome.
The move shoot move is good up to 3 kilograms, so you'll be fine.
And that setup that you showed off for us, was that something that you put on a telephoto to do a 75, 85, 100 millimeter, or would you start doing something different with the EQ wedge if you got heavier?
With the move shoot move, my personal limit is 135. So if you remember that deepscape image I showed earlier of the North American nebula on the horizon with that mounted in Chile, that was taken with the move shoot move and a 135 millimeter lens. That's like my limit. Anything longer than that focal length, I'll go with the Skywatcher Star Adventurer.
Okay, right on. And I think this will be our last question asked, and it may be an easy one to answer. The question is, are there any filters which give the look of Astro Modified? I don't know of any. Do you?
No, but I'm working on a Lightroom preset that will be included in my Astro Workflow Lightroom presets version 2, which will hopefully be coming very soonish. I just need to finish my book first. But I've created a preset for the brush tool in Lightroom, which recreates hydrogen alpha emissions. So
fantastic. Okay, well, this is the end of the Q&A, and everyone is saying thank you to you, Alyn Wallace. Kathy says thank you,
my pleasure.
Alyn.
Thank you all for coming.
And Sally's joining us over to Nightscaper. Brava, Sally. And Mike was asking earlier, hey, are these going to be available to watch? I came in a little late, and absolutely, the answer is yes. You can join us later by just watching the same link over on Facebook or over on YouTube. And the link that you have or you saw over at nightscaper.com, you can see it there anytime, rewatch it. Especially the YouTube link. It'll be always available, and it can be available to watch and replay right away, even when we end it right now. So you'll have it for life. So another couple of thanks, Alan and Aaron. Much appreciated from Alan. Cole Offroad says, you have no problem with Samyang 135 on the MSM? So he's saying, is it a question, Cole Offroad? I think it is. Do you have any problem with the Samyang 135 on the MSM? Have you used a 135?
Only if it's windy.
Okay, awesome. Bob says, Alan, thank you. Vanilla, nice chat. Thanks so much. Paulie says, thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks to both of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all, guys. Thank you very much.
Appreciate all of you. I hope that you will come out and meet Alan in person at the Nightscaper conference. We are going to bring the whales to the United States, and it's going to be awesome. And so thank you so much. If you need more Alyn Wallace because you haven't had enough, you can always check out my podcast, Photog Adventures Podcast. It's available anywhere. And there's an episode of Alan where he tells a story where he's directing a girl at the top of a mountain, and something crazy happens during that I won't spoil right here, but go back and listen to that episode. So thank you all. Thank you so much. Remind us, Alan, where everyone needs to go to say thank you and can find your gear list and find everything that you're doing, and plus buy a copy of the book.
So come on over to AlynWallacePhotography.com, which I haven't updated for quite a long time, so please don't judge my galleries. Come on over to Instagram and YouTube. Luckily, nobody really spells their name like mine, so when you search Alyn Wallace, you usually find me pretty easy. But yeah, come on over to YouTube, Instagram, sign up to my mailing list so you don't miss out on things like my book release and the new presets that are coming soon. And thank you all so much, and I look forward to meeting everyone in the Nightscaper conference.
Thanks so much, Alan, for giving us this time today. And a final question from Christina I'll answer. Are there any forums, etc. I can join to stay in touch? You should go over to the Facebook group, MilkyWayPhotographers.com, and join us there. The Milky Way Photographers Facebook group, where most of us are all going to the Nightscaper conference. So, Christina, you'll have good contact with us there, and you're always welcome to join me. If you want to avoid Facebook and have something that's ad-free and experience away from the Facebook experience, I got the Milky Way Photographers Guild.com. You can join us there, and I had Alan recently on a roundtable there that you can catch a replay of and the information of there. So thank you so much. Everyone have a good one. Thank you for the thumbs up thank yous. Thank you for watching on Facebook, and thank you for joining us in the conference. And we'll be back next week on Tuesday, and my mind fails me as to who I'm being joined with. I believe it's Mike Shaw and Jess Santos next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, and we'll be doing another Nightscaper pre-event. So thank you all. Have a good one, and get out there with your camera ASAP. See ya, everybody.